my due diligence on that site was absolutely zero. My due diligence was I can cut a fence, a gate in the back fence, and that will save me 3 minutes to get to the pub as opposed to walking around. That was my due diligence.
You are listening to the Property Developer Podcast, your home for tips, ideas, and inspiration to help take your developing to the next level. Now, here's your host, Justin Getty.
Hello, and welcome to episode 106 of the show. How are you doing? I've got an absolute classic episode coming up for you today with a guest I know you're going to absolutely love. Just before we get to him, here's a quick project update from me about what I've been up to. My Cambridge Road project is getting very close towards the end, thank goodness. We've got the power cabinet in now, we've got the gas manifold connected, the NBN's connected, the floorboards are going in, the landscaping's getting done, the electricians are doing the final fit off, the plumbers are in doing the final fit off. So it's all starting to come together, thank God, because it's been one hell of a ride. It's now been 2 years since the builder stepped on site there, so it's been a really long road, but we're getting close towards the end. On my other project, we've been trying to resolve some issues around levels and retaining walls, so that's been requiring a bit of back and forth with engineers and designers, but hopefully we're getting close to having a solution on that front. So on the projects front, there's plenty going on, which is good. Just before we get to Mark, a couple of quick promos. Don't forget about the property developer training, my step-by-step course to help you learn how to do your own small-scale property development project. You can find out all about that at propertydevelopertraining.com. Huge amount of content in there with lots of other people in learning how to become a developer. So jump over there if you want to learn how to be a developer. And you can also take the quiz, the property developer quiz, to see how ready you might be to become a developer. So head to propertydevelopertraining.com/quiz for that one. Now, with my project getting towards the end, I've been doing weekly video updates of how it's looking. So if you want to check those out, head to Insta, Facebook, or LinkedIn under the handle of Property Developer Podcast. All right, let's move on to our guest today, Mark Lovett from Liquid Silver Developments. Mark has a long and storied career doing small to medium scale development projects. He started out as a plasterer before moving into property investing. He then decided to try his hand at property developing and purchased his first site with absolutely no idea of what he was doing. And he later found out that there was an underground stream running through the site. We talk about that and a whole lot more, including things like understanding your risk appetite, how Mark's initial due diligence has evolved significantly over time, and what he's done well throughout his career. This is a really fantastic conversation that I'm certain you're going to love. So let's get stuck straight into it by finding out what food Mark would eat until he was sick.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm going to give you two options here, and that would be either steak or seafood, or both.
Yep, go just combine them with the surf and turf.
Surf and turf, mate, can't go wrong.
Oh, we haven't had too many steak lovers before.
Oh, really? Gee, maybe I'm a dying breed.
Particular kind of cut that you like to go for?
Look, if I had the choice, it would be the rump cap. Yes, a wagon rump cap.
Nicely cooked on a barbecue.
Nice and rare.
Ooh, okay.
Yep.
And then what about on the surf front? What would your choice
Surf front
be?
would either be prawns or lobster, crayfish.
Yeah, well, sometimes you don't need to eat too many prawns to feel sick.
No, you don't.
Get a bad one.
Oh, I've tried that before, don't worry. And it takes a few to feel sick, but I've definitely tested that theory.
All right, well, here we are today talking about property development. You've got an interesting story to share about your journey into doing projects.
Yes.
Let's kick off by starting with how'd you get into property, or what's your background in property?
So my background, early years, I'm a tradie, or was a tradie. I consider myself still a tradie. So yeah, left school and jumped into the trade base. Um,
What
Most of
trade?
my 20s were
Sorry, what trade?
plasterer, sorry, internal. So yeah, ceilings, lining, gibrock, all that sort of stuff. Commercial and residential as the time went on. Um, so most of my 20s were feeding my travel habit in the way of plastering, coming home, making some money, shooting off again, etc. Sort of hit the 30s and thought that I should probably start being an adult and sorting my life out. I couldn't travel forever. So I knew nothing about, obviously, being in the construction industry, surrounded by property, and that was, I did love it. It wasn't just a means to an ends. So I'm in Brisbane at this stage. I came across a gentleman called Ed Burton, an older gentleman up from Wollongong. He was doing the rounds, spruiking property investment, self-managed super funds, all that sort of stuff. And at this stage, I know nothing about purchasing property. I just knew that was probably the way I was going to go and the way I wanted to go. So $1,100, 2-day seminar, Brisbane Convention Centre. He's got my attention for 2 days. Let's see what I sort of can get out of this. What I did get out of it was a couple of hot tips that he sort of gave everyone. And living in Brisbane, one of those locations was Ningi, which is up near Bribie Island, little suburb just before you head over the bridge. And the other one was a place called Derrigan in Townsville. Now, through the tradie journey, I'd spent a lot of time in Townsville working, so I knew the area, knew the location, etc., what was going on there. So I've gone, okay, all right, good start. Had very limited funds in the bank, probably had 20K. I thought, oh, well, that must be enough to sort of get my foot in the door. Spoke to a broker. He said, mate, this is sort of your spend limit. Go shopping. So I jumped on a plane, went up to Derrigan. I hadn't been up there for a few years, and the landscape had changed a bit. Woolworths getting built, a bit of infrastructure, schools, a lot of dirt where new subs were sort of coming into play, etc. Close to the water, close to the beach, and again, very, very limited idea on what I should be looking for, etc. But all I knew was I knew the area. Knew the location, there was action happening, and Mr. Ed Burton had given me this tip. So that's all I needed. So I flew up there, purchased the property. It was 180,000. Came home, thought that was fun. This is good. How fun is this? Went back to the broker and said, I'm enjoying this. How do I do this again? And he said, all right, crunch some numbers, get back into it. Yeah, you can go and purchase another one for X amount. So I jumped on the internet, found another one around the corner, didn't fly up this time, just rang the agent, send me a contract, let's do the deal, bang, got that one. And within 12 months, I'd purchased 3. So another one just off the internet, sight unseen. And then came back to Brisbane and just kept working for a couple of years. And where I was living in Brisbane, a place called Bulimba, riverside suburb, affluent, on the up, nice little village, bars, cafes, cinema, etc. 5K from the city. A lot of action was happening in terms of development, townhouses, apartments, etc., houses. And, I drive past it every day to and from work and sort of go, that looks fun. These guys are driving nice cars and they're wearing nice clothes, and here's me and, covered in mud and dirt and whatever and sanding dust, and I could do that maybe. So I sold the 3 properties. The place went nuts up there at Derrigan, so thank you very much, Mr. Ed Burton, and pulled some hefty profits out of that within the 2 years. And I stumbled across next to Bulimba, a little suburb, Morningside, backs right onto it. Shops, train line, etc., 5K from the city, not as affluent. Bulimba's little brother, I guess. Come across 2 blocks there, 1,214 square meters over the 2 blocks, asking $345 each, same owner. I've gone $690 for 12, 14. I'll go and have a look. Well, I knew the area. It backed straight onto a pub, tick. It backed straight onto Woolworths, tick. Train lines just across the road. I live here. I love the place. Balimba's right next door. Let's buy it. So I did that. I used the equity that the profit that I made on those houses in Darrigan and quite blindly bought my first development site with absolutely no idea. I had no idea what I was doing. And yeah, that's how it started. That was my first site.
And what was the plan there? What did you end up doing?
I didn't have a plan. That was the beauty of it. Being naive, I guess, was a bit of a godsend then, because I didn't know the pitfalls and the risks and what could have happened. But I sort of muddled my way through it, spoke to an architect, got him on board. He drew some plans. They looked nice. I went, yep, sounds good. And in that time, I was sort of buying a few beers and steaks and talking to the local developers around the place and seeing what information I could get out of them. Google, fantastic, but absolutely no information on how to become a property developer. So I actually did, in that process, when I first started, stumbled across a fella called Colm Dillon. He spruiked that he'd built half of Brisbane and this and that for another company and worked in the States. And I had a look at this little limited course that he had there, $169. I've gone, buy, let's do that. It actually turned out to be the best purchase I've ever made in terms of knowledge and learning about property development, because it was a step-by-step guide and I didn't know any better. So I thought, okay, well, you're telling me you're this superstar. I'm going to follow what you tell me to do. So with that and lots of chats and beers and coffees with developers.
Pretty good return on investment as well at $169 a month.
Mate, it was fantastic. I've still got it to this day. I remember as soon as I got it, I printed it off, and it was about 500 pages in 4 different volumes, and I've still got the binded copy in my office, and I still go back to it, because sometimes it doesn't have to be complicated and the simple things work. So lent heavily on that, slowly built the team with the help of the architect. He was the main driver in it. We ended up with 10 units there. So my first project was 10 units. And I was sort of petering out of, in my mind, going, okay, well, let's peter out of plastering and you're going to become this big time property developer. This is exciting. How good. So I sort of petered out of plastering and focused on that. Still needed money, wanted to learn not just the property development process, but also construction from ground up, right? So I'd usually come in as a plasterer and everything would be built and I'd come in and plaster it. So I missed that first stage. So I decided to give up plastering there and then and become, I guess, a secret boss on site as the labourer. So only a couple, obviously builder, Chippy, I think the concreter and the Sparky knew that it was my site, and I just went incognito and rocked up every day and opened the gate and went and got my lollipop license to help with that sort of stuff, and just got stuck into it. And that was a godsend doing that, just with the construction, but also just the chit chats, with peers and people that were a lot smarter than me. And yeah, it was a great process. So 10 apartments, sold 3, market shit itself, ended up holding on to 7 and becoming a landlord. That was a process in itself, just the refinance and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it wasn't fatal, and just had the bug from there on, and just wanted to get stuck into more and learn more. And I knew within myself, I was always wanted to be very proactive in the whole process. I didn't want to handball it to a bunch of consultants and let them spend my money and make decisions for me. So I like getting my hands dirty. It was fun. It was exciting.
Yeah, you definitely want to be proactive in property development. But tell 10 apartments, that's a great first project. What were some of the key lessons that you learned?
Lessons. The big lesson I learned there was probably I had no choice, but was relying on architect and other consultants. And one of the things which, unbeknownst to anyone and not anyone's fault, my due diligence on that site was absolutely zero. My due diligence was I can cut a fence, a gate in the back fence, and that will save me 3 minutes to get to the pub as opposed to walking around. That was my due diligence. So, we ended up, it was a low-lying area, so I had to build it up. There's 80K that I didn't think about. Bringing fill in, subfloors, blocking, core fill block walls, all that sort of stuff. But also on top of that, we had about, call it 100 piers because it was low lying and a bit damp underneath. I didn't know anything about soil tests. And we hit a underground river or stream at about, I don't know, call it 6 meters or something. So the screw piers, whatever it was, call it 50K, 60K, turned into about 200K because we had to lengthen them. I think we ended up getting down to, upwards of 15 or so meters just to get a bite on it, just to hold the building up. So that was a lesson learned there in the due diligence phase. But again, I wasn't phased. I had a contingency. The LVRs were working with the funder, etc. I just knew that I had to get to the end. I'd started and get to the end. But yeah, so that was on that project. But I think lessons learned, really getting the finances in place, right? I mean, I'm funding projects, so it's one we can get to that stage where we've got our DA and BA in place, and that's great. We tipped in some developer equity, and that's fantastic. But if you run into a brick wall where your LVRs aren't working in terms of funding, it's a lemon, right? It stops dead in its tracks. So really getting my finances, really understanding every single element and cost that goes into to building a property, a project. I've had ones along the way where I've missed this and I've missed that just because I didn't know what I didn't know. And it's an extra 50 here or 100 there. All of a sudden your contingency's chewed up and they're looking at me going, mate, how deep are your pockets? And I'm like, well, I don't even have pockets on these pants. So there's no money in there. So yeah, just really getting the finances and your FISO in order and really knowing up front what you're up for. So there's no nasty surprises.
And then when you went undercover, the undercover developer.
Yes.
What did you learn there? What was that experience like?
I learned to keep my mouth shut because a lot of the trades, even in a smoko shed, conversations like, oh, who's the dickhead developer that designed this and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm standing in the corner sort of giving everyone side eye going, oh, that's me, but I'm not going to let on. But I think the importance of that, the key people and the key team around you that can, in that novice stage of where I was, just to help steer the ship and for me just to lean on, back then I'm like, I'm going to have to ask some really stupid questions here, as basic as they are, but I didn't know any better and I wanted to learn. And, you surround yourself with the right people and they don't see those questions as stupid. They just see it as someone that really wants to learn and get their hands dirty and understand the process. And yeah, you've got the right people there. They're a big help and they get it.
Yeah, I say that a lot to fledgling developers, people I speak to that are getting started. Just putting that team together is so important. And you're going to come across people who are helpful, and that's great. But you'll also come across people who don't want to help and short with you, and that's okay as well. You just got to move on and find the right people. Yeah,
that's right. It does take time. I rely on a lot of recommendations, either from developers that I don't know and I'm driving past a site, mate, who's your engineer? This is a similar project to mine, or recommendations from my peers or other developers, mates, or whatever. But it is very important. And, at the end of the day, we're steering the ship in a sense. It's our project, it's our money, it's our livelihood. We've got these guys on board and, they're usually a lot smarter than us. They might be a lot richer than us or in a better position in life than us and, seen a lot more than us in terms of experience. But it is up to us to really manage that team and find your people there who you have a relationship with. And, they're not going to charge you $500 for a phone call. Carton of beer is okay. But, you really need those those relationships, and like you said, someone that will sit there and take the time to listen to what you've got to say, or your view as novice as it might be. And at the end of the day, let's be honest, they're spending our money. They go home at 5 o'clock. They have a nice meal and go to sleep, and get a good night's sleep. After 5, we don't. So at the end of the day, you really need to sort of really be in charge of that, and in some sort of respectful way take some sort of control.
Yeah, and they get paid generally whether the project succeeds or not.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. No, I often liken the developer to the conductor of the orchestra. You're there trying to keep everyone in line, in tune, coming in at the right time. And
that's the thing, right? Like, we're not expected to be. I'm a plasterer. I don't know anything about engineering, so we're not expected to know. It's a multidisciplinary process, property development. So we're not expected to know everything, but I really think that it is in your best interest to really get above board on a lot or all of the different components and disciplines of putting a project together. It just helps you out in the long run. It makes things easier, even if you've got to fake it till you make it a bit, But really sort of learn bits and pieces of each discipline.
And what happened to the remaining 7 apartments? You still got them, or did you?
I haven't. No, I sold. That was back in 2007. I sold the last of those probably 7 or 8 years ago. They were great, and there was a little bit of appreciation there, but it didn't suit my needs at the time. And to be honest with you, strategies change, and my strategy going into this was develop, sell, pay the king, pay the tax, and take what's left, and go and buy a nice car. But I ended up turning into a landlord, and I soon realised that I didn't want to be a landlord. I didn't want to talk broken dishwashers and deal with property agents and all this sort of stuff. So unfortunately, I had to be for a while. But over time, I've certainly lent towards more develop and sell.
And then what was the second project?
Second project was, I teamed up with my brother. He about the same time as me doing the 10, he was dabbling in a 4-pack of townhouses. So we bounced off each other and sort of muddled our way through together. So I teamed up with him. We come across a little site in Morningside in Brisbane. It was DA'd for 3 townhouses close to train line, 5K from city, etc. Nice, easy buy-in, we thought. Got those built, but what we did, we put a GIA in, or permissible change, and could see a bit of an opportunity there for one, being close to the train line. There was a TAFE up the road, etc. Obviously, the unis in South Bank and that sort of stuff. So we completely changed the 3 townhouses to, I guess, you'd probably call it boarding houses or rooms these days. We put 2 kitchens in there. Each room had its own bathroom, and they were just a general 250, 300 square metre townhouse, double parking, which some of them we converted and used up a bit of that space because we didn't think they'd have cars for office space, etc., etc. So spent a few dollars on getting that permissible change, and I think at the end of it, we ended up with maybe 6 or 7 rooms in each townhouse. So, going from 3 townhouses that we could rent for $650 a pop to, sort of charging $150, $200 per room, it was certainly a financial decision. And that worked. So I no longer have that. We no longer have that. But again, moved on, circumstances change, use equity elsewhere. But that was the second one. And then the third one, I jumped back into apartments, come across a nice little block and stuck 17 apartments on that, 4 stories. First one in the suburb with a lift. So that was our angle. No more walk up.
Any underground rivers with that one?
There wasn't, no. That was and I didn't know at the time of purchasing, but the block, 20 odd metre frontage, 750 square metres, but ran from the road uphill slightly, probably 2.5 metres. And having a really good architect on board at the time utilised the lay of the land with our height limits and density and setbacks, etc., but mainly to do with the height. As we know, basements are expensive. So what we could do is we could sort of dip down from the road 300 or 400 mil, cut straight back in. So basically cut a wedge out of this block, and it allowed us to get an extra floor on, which we had, what did we have? Maybe five units per floor and a couple on top on the fourth level. And obviously not coming out of the ground over a metre doesn't constitute a level or a floor. So a bit of trickery there, but I've gone, okay, I'm onto something here. That's something I'm going to look out for in the future if I'm building that sort of product. And I did. My latest project down here on the Gold Coast is of the same nature, with that running uphill from the road. And again, did the same thing in a two-story area, 9 meters. I managed to get 4 stories with a 50% concession to about 12 meters or something. So yeah, that was that one.
And then is that you continued on doing townies and apartments, or did you
branch out more leaning towards the apartments? It was just, look, obviously going upwards, your yield and your different times of product and schemes in terms of apartments are a little bit more beneficial, obviously, if the market appetite is there. But townhouses were great, but the market started moving, and all of a sudden for a 506 block, which you can get a duplex on, you're paying $1 million for, and then you got to spend another 500 for the build plus all your and the rest of it, the story. And the back end sales just weren't working. There was either 100K in it or 50K or nothing, and it just wasn't worth it. So stuck to the units and shifted more towards owner-occupier, an owner-occupier product. And look, depends on the location, as you know, there needs to be an appetite there from the market for a certain type of product, so that's what I've been doing until now.
And then you also got involved in some feasibility software along the way.
Yes. Yeah. So I have a very close relationship with the founder of a software that's coming to market called Feasly. It's basically, in a nutshell, it's a financial feasibility software built specifically for Australian property developers. Okay, so not a spreadsheet, nothing against spreadsheets, but as we know, errors can occur depending on the user. Software built specifically for Australian property developers, and the way we see it, it's reducing your risk, and you're going to have clear sight lines throughout your project. So yes, very exciting, very exciting. As you know, there's probably only not even a handful of property development feasibility tools out there, I guess, not counting obviously built in-house. But the way we see it, it's the same as accountants. They got off spreadsheets 10 years ago with the likes of Xero and MYOB and that sort of stuff. And if we weren't going to do it, someone's going to do it, and we just wanted to get in there, and we saw an opportunity, and we think we've got a fantastic product.
Yeah, well, I know that you spent a bit of time helping a mentoring student of mine, Dan, with his
great
ISO, and he used it on one of his latest projects. I think it came in fairly accurate.
Yes, well, that's what that's the aim there. We put it to a soft launch probably 6 or so months ago, as you know. We spoke about it, and a lot of feedback in terms of what was missing, what was needed, and Feasly isn't just for big players. Like, it's for mum and dad investors, duplex, 4 units, 20 townhouses, 100 stories, commercial, land subdivisions, mixed use, etc. We're covering the whole base there. So the feedback was certainly very helpful, and we're back at tech at the moment, just scoping everything out and getting everything built to try and cover the majority of people's needs there, and different types of projects, and fingers crossed, full launch to the market in March 24.
Yeah, it's nice. Funny, I was saying to you, it's like you took my feasibility and turned it into a digital version. It's really great.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that. I mean, look, let's face it, feasibility software doesn't have to be complicated, okay? And everyone has different needs, different size projects, etc. And we're trying to take the complication out of it. Just the UX, the flow of it all, and just features with sharing and with funders and surveyors and valuers, all that sort of stuff. Really, just trying to condense the process. We don't want users to be overwhelmed. We want them to use what they need and flick the rest or turn it off or blind it, etc. And it just works. There's just no room for error. And a big thing with Feasly, I guess, is as with me back in the early days, I didn't know what to put on my beer coaster Feeso, right? Civils, Telstra connections, 30K, etc. And that stuff adds up, right? It's not just dollars and cents. So a big thing we do is we preempt as an option. You either turn it on or turn it off. Is preempt a mile of items that could be applicable to a certain project, townie, apartments, boosters, all that sort of stuff that costs money. So if you choose to use it, you turn it on and you use what items you need. If you're more experienced and you know what you're doing, you don't have to use that. But it's really, I think there's a bit of an educational aspect within that, which is so important, just to not miss those items, which can be costly, and just to sort of preempt the user to go, okay, well, I didn't think of that. That's a $60,000 fire booster I need there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think the great part about it is that it keeps you up to date in terms of your version. Your version control is good, and you don't have broken formulas that flow through and cause problems elsewhere.
Yeah, without knowing too, and you're onto your third project and you've been using a clunky spreadsheet. But everything has its place, and like I said, a lot of people out there have built spreadsheets as yourself and your clients, and they work, and we do what works. So we're just trying to introduce something specifically for Australian property developers that is going to the next level, I guess, and we can't stop it. That's the way it's going.
Yeah, well, I've got my own online property developer training course, and I spend a lot of time going through finance and feasibilities because it's such a cornerstone of a project.
Yes.
And as you say, when you're getting started, one, you don't know what you don't know, and then two, you kind of don't know how to put it all together in a feasibility.
That's right, and there's so many aspects to it. I mean, a lot of people that I speak to that are, I've got this 4 townhouse project and I'm going to make $1 million, and that's great. And I have a quick look at it and go, okay, so first thing I notice is you haven't accounted for GST. Your GRV on that is $4.5 million minus your spend. You're up for 250K in GST, mate. So okay, make $1 million now. It's down to 750, not bad, but I reckon I could find a few other little things in there you've missed as well, without being cheeky. So yeah, very important. I mean, as we know, property development really is about financials, right? That's what it's about. That's what we're here for. That's, without sounding a bit crass, at the end of the day, we put the hard work in and we look for how successful a project is, and that's based on the bottom line, I guess, in a lot of respects. So I would say that's number one element of a project, and that's really becoming an expert in the financials.
Yeah, look, I always say developing, number one, it's a finance game. And then secondly, it's a relationships game, a people game.
100%. And that's the thing, like we said before, it's so multidisciplinary that you're not just dealing with one person. You've got 20 odd people coming at you, looking at you for advice and answers and direction. And definitely relationships.
And getting back to the developing, we've already touched on some of the key lessons, but overall, what would you say some of the key lessons you've learned about property developing?
Look, I think we just touched on one of those, and that's the financials, and really getting that in order and really getting your head around what it takes to complete a project, all of your costs, etc. For me, I guess a lot of it's been learnt about myself. Like I have no problems jumping off a cliff and hoping for a soft landing, right? Like I don't have to worry about that. My appetite for risk is very healthy. So that's never been a problem. I guess in terms of the process, it can be overwhelming. Okay. Even I get overwhelmed. In the early days, I probably didn't, because I don't know what the worst case scenario is here, except lose everything. And that's great, because I'll just go and try and make it again. But I think for me is one, self-management, okay, and your time management. As I said, it can be very overwhelming. So when you've got 20 people coming at you that want direction and answers, and all of a sudden your inbox is filling up and you don't know the answer to half of those, and you need to make external phone calls and get some advice or whatever it may be, with myself, and this is with me in general life as well, you know, if I've got any more than 5 emails in my inbox, I start to pace the hallways. Okay, it's not something that sits well with me. I need to be focused and planned, and I need to know within myself that things aren't building up and I'm not getting overwhelmed, because I do, right? I still do. But once I sit down and take a breath and really work through that list in order of priority, you know, it might only take an hour or so, but I feel 100% afterwards. So just that inner process of not becoming overwhelmed, I think, with everyone throwing spears at you, it's something that I've found that I've had to manage, and yeah, big learning curve with the property development process.
Yeah, and you go through those ebbs and flows through a project where it might not be that busy, and then suddenly there's a whole bunch of things happening, and you do
Yes.
have a lot that you have to deal with at
Yes,
one point
that's
in
right.
time.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And then you mentioned hitting the stream underneath your first site. Have there been any other sticky situations that you've found yourself in?
In terms of my developments, look, each one may have had a 50, 60K blowout or even more or something. I've always allowed for it in contingency. In terms of sticky, I mean, none of them have been fatal. I'm still here to tell the tale. So in terms of sticky, I guess, yeah, probably just certain aspects. I'll give you an example. So the last project I did, 4 stories, owner rock, 9 apartments down on the Broadwater here on the Gold Coast. And the civil guy drew up for a new sewer line, right? Now, the manhole was 50 metres down the street. It was going to be a 60 grand exercise. I didn't like the sound of that. I've gone, okay, well, here comes another Mark stupid question. Can we do something different? No, we can't. We need to connect into it. We need to run a new 150 AC pipe, etc., etc., etc. I'm like, okay, so what do you actually need? A 150 AC pipe feeding into our lot. He said, yes, that's all we need. That's all we need, a 150. Upgrade from 100 to 150, and your old one there is a 100. I'm like, okay. How do you know that? Council records say it is. Okay, no worries. I'm demoing the house. I go out there with a shovel. I get the demo guy in his 20-tonner just to dig up on the boundary where the connection's coming into my lot. I'm 2 meters in a hole. Excuse my French, but shit everywhere. Okay, this is a sewer line. So I'm down there and I dig it back. Took me a day, get back on the council side. What do you know? It's a 150 line. Get onto the civil guy. Hey, buddy, I know you probably are sitting there in your air conditioning and you haven't come out to have a investigate on this, but I've just found a 150 sewer line. He's gone, oh, wow, okay, fantastic. Stupid question is not such a stupid question now. I said, what do? Do we talk to council? He said, mate, if you just go in there and put some CCTV footage down there and show council the condition of the lining of the pipe, they'll let you connect onto that connection. Did that, 2.5 grand, CCTV, was 60, saved 57.5 for getting shit on my shoes. I was happy. So yeah, just little things like that, I guess, sticky situations.
Well, that one was literally sticky.
Very sticky, yeah, very sticky. Couldn't go home for a week, had to sleep out on the front lawn. Yeah, and look, there's been another development that my brother and I got into and might have bit off more than we could chew. We put together 4 lots in an emerging area in Brisbane, 3K from Brisbane. City plan had just been changed. We saw an opportunity, got an option over 4 lots, 12-month option, so non-refundable option fees, etc. There's 100K. DA for 100 units, 2 towers. Obviously, we didn't have the capital to go through with the project, so we were either strategy was sell it with a DA and make a little uplift, make some money there, or find a money partner. And we love developing, so we thought, let's build 100 units, let's find a money partner. Found a very big outfit in Melbourne. You would know who they were, but I won't mention any names. Fantastic people, never a bad word to say about them. Built a relationship with them. They jumped on board. So they were going to inject money, but not throw cash on the table, but through a lend process from internally within their organisation. So basically the same as having a money partner funder on board, just the back end mechanics were running through them. So needed 60 odd pre-sales for them to be comfortable to move ahead. We dropped about 600 or 700K at this stage. The market shit itself. All of a sudden, team meeting, things are getting a little bit sticky, guys. Don't know if we can go through with this. We're like, oh, okay. All right, so the money's really just, and there were some hefty profits in the back end for myself and my brother. This thing can go 2 ways. We either can it now and come up with a figure for myself and my brother to walk away, or we just slowly keep trying to get pre-sales and it's just going to chew up dollars and no one will have anything at the back end of it. So, there was a bit of back and forth there. Okay, this is our figure. They started laughing. Okay, they said this is their figure. We started laughing and crying at the same time. And at the end of it, we come to an agreement and we walked out with our pants on, but there was a lot of zeros left there on the table. But lesson learned, we wanted to go big and we saw the flashy lights and the dollar signs at the end of it. And it's exciting, right? Like that was exciting for us. My brother, he's more of a risk taker than me. So the two of us together, there's no one pulling each other back, right? We're racing to the cliff to see who can jump off first. So whether that's a good mix or not, I don't know, but it was exciting, but expensive.
And what was the lesson from that project?
Look, I don't think we did anything wrong. I think timing and maybe a little bit of bad luck in the market had a lot to do with it. Look, I'm not a solicitor, but maybe solidify a few more things at the back end in case things did go pear-shaped. But look, I have no regrets on doing it. It's only money, you suffer for a little while and you kick yourself and suck lemons for a bit. But at the end of the day, I'd do it again. 100%.
Yeah, I had a project that was just about to start construction as COVID hit, and I can remember everything was all ready to go. I had the finance all sorted out, and as it was blowing up, the lenders called me and they said, "We're not taking on any more clients. You're the last deal that we're doing for a while. Just going to see what plays out. Do you want to proceed? What's your plan? You want to go ahead or you just want to hold off?" I remember thinking, well, I don't see the point in holding off. It's just going to delay everything. So we're all set to go. So we want to push ahead.
And you did.
Which is what we did. And it sort of all worked out okay in the end. It was kind of built through COVID and then came out the other side as the market was improving.
Yeah. And I mean, you put the hard work into that stage, right? And hard work puts you in a place where good luck can find you. So sometimes you just have to hang on and just get it done and see what comes out the back end.
What about a favorite project? You got a favorite child?
It's funny you just told me about that project of yours because my favorite project hasn't happened yet. It's I've got an approval here on the Gold Coast, and this is the one I was telling you about with the 9 meter height limit, and I managed to get the 4 stories there. It's a post-war sort of area with some really nice done-up houses, village. So walkability is perfect next to the water. And I've come in and sort of gone, got an approval with locals backing to put this 4-story, 8 owner-occupier apartments there. It's called the Huxley. So that has been a similar situation to you. COVID hit, knocked the house down, sold them all. 20 tonne of waiting out the front, start digging holes. Builder said, "Oh, we should just revise the build price." Like, I don't know what's going on here, but it's looking a bit funny out there. And the construction price doubled. So once I sort of stopped crying for a while, I just shut the gate and spoke to the purchasers and said, "Look, this is where we stand. It's not working for me. We can either tip some more money in, or I'm happy to go halves, or we'll just try and make it work the best way we can." I sold them all myself, so I had a relationship with these people. And they sort of said, "Yeah, look, at this stage, we don't know what's going on either. A vow's going to come in, et cetera, so we're going to pull out." So very excited about that. It was very new in the area in terms of the product, and a beautiful product. Very excited, and that sort of got pulled from underneath me. So it hasn't happened yet, but I'm gearing up again. So yeah, that will be my most, I guess, rewarding and exciting project.
Just on the sales there, how did you do them yourself? Was it just through people that you knew, or was it a public campaign?
So as you know, as a developer, you can sell your own stock. Don't need a real estate. I don't have a real estate license. I am not a salesman. But I just put an ad up on realestate.com, and obviously I know a few people on the ground, agents, etc., and just put the feelers out. It didn't happen with externally. All of my inquiries came through my ad. It's a in demand area. Nothing is ever for sale there. It's got all of the infrastructure in place. Gold Coast Hospital's 2 k's from where I am, train line, tram, all that sort of stuff. So I knew they would sell themselves, but yeah, I was just the front man, and I was up front. I'm the developer, and people sort of, it's funny watching their eyes when you say, "Look, you meet them on a Sunday, you've been to the beach in the morning, can we meet at 12 o'clock? No worries." Rock up in shorts and flip-flops and go, "Okay, who are you?" And they sort of relax a little bit, because they are owner-occupiers, right? They're not investors, so they are heavily invested emotionally, etc. And I think it's just nice for them to talk to someone that knows every inch of that project, right? I've only got DA plans at this stage. I'm selling off of DA plans. There's no measurements. So they want to know how wide the kitchen bench is and how big that study area is, and, customizing that sort of stuff. So it wasn't a hard process. It was obviously the timing, and Donald Duck could have sold them at that stage. It wasn't me personally, but I was just the front man. But yeah, it was an easy process. And, I look at the financials and see 350K sitting there and go, "I'm going to have a crack at selling these myself," and I did. So there's another 350K added to the bottom line. And yeah, relationships, right? If you can sit there and talk to people and be honest and upfront, and let them know timelines and how long it's going to take, and no rubbish that some, not all agents out there might throw at prospective buyers. I think it's relieving for the incoming buyers. So yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah, I've got another developer I know who insists on meeting prospective buyers before signing the contract, because he says he wants to know who they are, and he wants to be certain that they're getting what they want, and that they can meet him and he can talk to them and ask them questions. They can ask him questions. He said, "Look, I just want to make sure that they're getting what they want."
Yes,
and
exactly.
It just saves time in the back end at the handover.
Yeah.
It's just a much smoother process.
100%, 100%. And you're part of the body corp for 12 months, right? So you're still sticking your nose in here and there. And it's funny you say that, because I know when I first started out, you know, I want a nice car and I want to fill my pockets up, and it was all bang, 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 let's go. This is fantastic. But I think over the last 17 or so years, and because of selling them myself, and you do meet these people, especially the owner occupiers, that have worked hard for their money, right? And they're investing six, seven, eight, $900,000 of their hard-earned money into something that you've created from a pipe dream lying in bed at night. And it sort of shifts, the reward for myself sort of shifts in, yes, we all need to eat, fantastic, but it shifts from that working with these guys and customizing a bathroom and getting to know them and meeting them on a Sunday with 5 different tile samples, etc. Just knowing that they've invested in me as the person that's created this project, and they're willing to put their money and bet on me. And you know, at the end of the day, that is a big reward in the whole process, and that's what I've noticed just by selling certain projects myself and meeting these people.
And what's the plan with that project? What's all been repriced? You're going to
look, I've sort of tentatively starting to investigate again, just through a few conversations. The gap's getting better in terms of bottom line. It's still not where I need it to be. Just with construction prices up here and labour shortages, things are still through the roof, right? It's absolutely crazy. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not rushing. It's still there. Approvals are still in place. I've got the BA, you know, I've invested quite a few dollars into this, you know, what a BA costs, all construction drawings and engineering, etc. I'm ready to go. So I'm hanging on to it tightly.
What's something that you would say that you've done quite well throughout your developing career?
I think the management process, as we were speaking about the team, knowing the importance of the team and putting them together, and really I just rinse and repeat and use the same guys for specific projects. So building those relationships. So one, really managing that process, getting to know certain elements and aspects of each discipline, okay, certainly helps for them, helps for me in general conversation, consultant meetings, you know, sitting at the end of the table and having my 2 cents worth, going, well, you know, why use steel up there? It's going to cost 60 grand. Can we use some LVLs or something and cut the price in half? So just having that confidence as well amongst the team through building those relationships. I think with myself, what I probably haven't learned it. I've probably always been this way, but applying it to the property development process is myself time management. Okay, super important. Just having all ducks in a row and really trying to work out red flags before the fire starts. Okay, and being able to pivot and at least have a plan B and a plan C and know that preempting that before things may arise. Obviously, you can't preempt everything there, but just really being prepared and really having all your ducks in a row and just really being proactive in everything, right? And yeah, that time management has certainly helped me. It stops the overwhelming situations and makes me feel like I'm in more control. You know, when you feel like you're in control of a situation, that's when you work at your best. So,
are there other things that you'd say that you do now that you didn't do earlier on?
It's funny because, you know, as I mentioned before, my appetite for risk is so high that, and call it naivety when I was young and when I was learning all of this stuff, but I've probably come a little bit more risk adverse as we've gone on, you know, like, and that's only through knowing the importance of becoming an expert in due diligence and your market analysis and appetite from the market on a certain product that you think you might be able to put on a block of dirt. So I think, you know, as I've become a little bit more experienced over the years, I've probably taken the risk appetite is still there, but I guess I'm not just walking up blind and jumping. I'm going through certain processes, as you know. So that's certainly changed. And look, for a good thing, I love the risk thing. Like it's exciting, and that's who I am. But yeah, knowing that I've thoroughly carried out my due diligence and market analysis and that sort of thing prior to taking control or purchasing a site. As I'm getting older, it does help me sleep a little bit better at night.
So you're walking up to the edge of the cliff with the wingsuit on now.
Exactly. A big cushion down the bottom. And it's probably only 6 foot high these days, not 20 foot. Yeah.
That's good to hear. What do you think the best piece of advice is that you've ever received?
Best piece of advice is become the expert in your due diligence process. I think once you've nailed that process up front, prior to taking control or purchasing that site, I think you just put yourself in good stead for a successful project. Things are obviously going to change and you might have to pivot, but knowing everything up front, especially within that due diligence process, not just site investigation and setbacks and some town planning constraints, etc. But for me, I am heavily invested in the market analysis. Okay, so who's going to buy this product or rent this product at the back end? I think that is so important. For me, it shapes what type of land you're going to buy, in what location. If you don't know what the appetite there for a certain product is by the market, well, I think you're going to struggle at the back end. You might jag it and get lucky, and it could be a great market and you could sell anything. But if you haven't got the right product and you don't really study your market and get out there and know who's living in that area and what people want, I mean, from inception to completion could be 18 months or 2 years. So you also need to be on top of how things are changing. And, by the time you start, they've just started a university 600 meters from your project, and it's going to be finished in 2 years. Predominantly at the moment, it's the demographic is mums and dads with 4 kids and double garage and courtyard, townies, larger residences, etc. But that uni coming in, I might be able to look at a skinnier block where I don't need a frontage, but is zoned for 4 stories where I can get 35 one-bedroom apartments on there. So, just knowing that appetite and what people want at the back end, that's my go-to. Become an expert in that space.
And is that your advice for people that be looking to take their developing to the next level?
You know what? I think it is, yeah. I mean, firstly, whatever that next level means to you, whether it's scaling up in terms of larger investment, larger projects, etc., larger risk. I think that's an internal question you need to ask yourself, and obviously look at your financial position and what you're willing to lose. But definitely, I think the market, right? A marketing analysis is free. It doesn't have to be costly. I mean, go and sit in the park on a Saturday morning and have a coffee and just have a look at who's walking around and enjoying the facilities and what cafes are they going to and how old are they? Take a bit of paper, 20 to 35-year-olds, 40 plus, 50 plus, etc. Do they have dogs? They must have a courtyard, drive the streets, put together some data on what's selling or what's coming up. Go and see, go to open homes. That's free. That takes a few hours, take a coffee and see what sort of demographic are looking at what sort of product, ask you what questions they're asking. Does it have a walk-in robe, etc.? How many cars, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. You compile all that sort of data and you're going to have a very specific pile of information that is going to help you choose a site, what sort of product you're going to put on it, how big, how many car spaces, etc. So to me, that is so important, and it's free. Okay, you can just get out there on the weekend and start compiling data and you'll get your answers.
Yeah, and I often say it only takes 3-4 months of closely monitoring a market.
It does.
To get a real understanding of what kind of property transacts and for what amount of money and who buys it. It's 3 or 4 months, you really start get a good understanding.
Yeah, exactly. And so important. I think that's where that's where the success of your project is born.
All right, Mark. Well, we're getting close to the end. Any final thoughts you want to share with us?
Final thoughts. Look, I think, for people out there maybe starting in development, I think you just really need to be honest with yourself and know yourself, what type of person you are. Obviously, myself, I love the risk, and that's great, and that works for me. It's not going to work for some people. It'll be too overwhelming. You won't complete a project, and it'll just be all too much for you. So I think really be honest with yourself and ask yourself some hard-hitting questions. What are you willing to lose? What's your appetite for risk? How active do you want to be in the process? Do you just want to handball it to a team and let them make all the decisions? That's important. That's important, because we don't know until we've gone through the process and we learn stuff about ourselves and what we come across and what pitfalls and red flags and fires we need to put out. You sort of don't know, but it can be a risky business. It is a risky business. Obviously, your due diligence plays a big part in that, de-risking, etc. But at the end of the day, it is a risky business, right? The market can turn, things can happen, and we're not talking dollars and cents here, right? It's a considerable amount of investment that is put into a project from us as developers. So, yeah, really know yourself, ask yourself some hard-hitting questions, and really be honest, and yeah, do what feels right. But at least have a go. Start small, have a go. If you're overwhelmed, start with a reno. That's still property developing. Move up to a duplex or something, do what you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I was having this very conversation with a young developer last week. We were talking about what kind of projects to tackle or that he could tackle. And I said that same thing to him. It just comes back to your risk appetite. What are you prepared to risk? Because you want to be able to get to sleep at night. It's going to take a couple of years potentially to get your project done. And there's no point taking on a highly risky project type if you're not comfortable with that. And,
no, that's right.
And that could be a 3-unit site for some people, or an 8-unit site for someone else, or a duplex might be considered risky for someone else. So you just have to understand what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and just adding to that as well, I think, you hear it all the time. I mean, with our own principal place of residence, we're emotionally invested, right? But property developing, there's no room for emotions. Okay, we're looking at a process and the bottom line here. So, if you want to put your favorite pink tile in there, but that's not what the market appetite is, well, good luck with that. But you really need to just sort of draw a line in the sand and see it for what it is, and get from A to B as fast as you can in the best way possible to produce a successful project. So yeah, no, that's what's worked for me. No room for emotion. I mean, obviously it's going to be emotional, but don't get invested emotionally into your project. And one more thing on top of that is, like I said before, know your funding position up front. Get your financials in place, know what it's going to cost, know what your back-end sales are going to be, your GRV, and know before you press the button if you will be able to obtain funding. Because there's no point investing 300 or 400K stamp duty, deposits on properties and DAs and all that sort of stuff if you're going to run into a brick wall because no one wants to lend you the money because your LVRs are way off and you don't have any more money to tip in. So that is heartbreaking. That I came across that once with one of my projects, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. It takes the wind out of your sails. So know your funding position up front. Get to know what funders are offering.
Yeah, very good point. All right, Mark, it's been so awesome speaking with you today. If people want to find out more about you, where should they look?
So my development company is Liquid Silver Developments. I'm up here on the Gold Coast, and in terms of our property development software, that is feasly.com.au. So yeah, go and have a look.
Yeah, definitely check out Feasly. It's a great resource, and always fantastic to talk with you, Mark. Appreciate all the stories that you've shared. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and all the best getting that special project out of the ground.
Yes, I'll do my best. And likewise, Justin, nice talking to you, mate. Thanks again.
All right. See you later.
Thank you, mate. Bye.
You've been listening to the Property Developer Podcast. Tune in next time for more tips, ideas and inspiration to take your developing to the next level. For more developing love, make sure to visit propertydeveloperpodcast.com.